You know city council meetings, right? They're supposed to be where democracy happens, up close and personal. But let's be honest, a lot of the time they just feel like procedure, rules, jargon, all very formal. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one meeting in Portland, Oregon. We're looking for that exact moment when the script gets tossed out the window and the real, unfiltered voice of the city steps up and grabs the mic.
So, every single meeting kicks off with this familiar, almost robotic rhythm. First, the formal call to order.
Then, a roll call. Just to make sure everyone knows who's in charge.
And finally, the reading of the rules. A little reminder about how to behave. It's all very structured, very predictable, but what happens right after this is anything but. All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to skip right past all the administrative stuff and get to the real heart of the meeting, the part where the public gets to speak. We'll look at the urgent demands around public safety, the crisis on the streets, an incredibly powerful plea for simple human dignity, and what it all tells us about the real power of just 3 minutes. So this is it. This is the moment. The official name on the agenda is Public Communications, but I think a better name is the People's Podium. It's the one part of the meeting where all the formal stuff pauses and the raw, unscripted voices of the people who actually live in the city get to take center stage.
The rules are pretty simple. If you're a resident, you can sign up to talk about anything you want. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. You only get 3 minutes. That's it. 180 seconds to get your point across, to tell your story, to demand change. That time limit, it forces you to make every single word count. And as you're about to see, it can lead to some incredibly powerful moments.
So the first major theme that just erupted from the podium was public safety. And this wasn't some abstract policy debate. Oh no. Residents came up to demand specific action, to demand accountability, and believe me, they did not hold back.
First up to the mic is Sonny Hart, and he walks up there with a very clear purpose: to call out what he sees as the city's complete failure to deal with ICE and to hold its own police force accountable.
See how direct that is? He's not messing around. He's basically saying, hey, you all pointed the finger and told us who's responsible. Well, that person isn't doing anything. It is a direct shot, an accusation of total inaction, aimed right at the top. And this, right here, shows you the stakes. For Sonny, this isn't just about some bureaucratic process. This is about preventing real-world violence. He's connecting the council's inaction directly to the threat of bloodshed in the streets. He's begging for a conversation before it's too late. All right, next, the podium became a window into one of Portland's most difficult and visible challenges, the homelessness crisis. And we heard from 2 residents who described the very same problem from 2 completely different, but, equally powerful points of view.
So on one hand, you have Eugene Jackson, and he's talking about the city's entire strategy. And on the other, you have Laura Curry, describing what it's actually like, day to day, living in the middle of this crisis.
Wow. Listen to that metaphor Eugene Jackson uses. He compares the city's shelter policy to farm animals being let out to graze. Now, he's not being cruel to people. He's making a really sharp point about the system itself. He's saying it just manages people's movements, pushing them around without offering any real help, any real path forward. It's about containment, not a solution.
And then you hear from Laura Curry, and her testimony just brings the whole crisis down to this incredibly visceral, personal level. Her experience isn't about policy debates. It's about the real, tangible impact on her life, every single day. And when you put these 2 quotes together, you start to see a much fuller and, frankly, more complicated picture of what's going on. But, the most emotionally powerful moments came when the conversation shifted from things like policy and public spaces to something deeply, deeply personal: the simple right to exist with dignity and without being afraid.
Skylar Cruz came to the podium. She was there to talk about gender-neutral restrooms, but her testimony quickly became so much more than that. It turned into this incredibly powerful statement about her own existence, connecting what happens in that room to a national climate of hate.
This line right here is so important. Skylar is refusing to be just a number, a statistic in a report, or a talking point in a political fight. She's reminding them of her humanity, of the fact that she shows up in that very room time and time again. She is demanding that they see her as a person.
And then she says this. She brings the fear that she feels every day right into the halls of government. This isn't some abstract threat she's talking about. She is looking at the people in charge and telling them to their faces that their actions and their associations make her feel unsafe.
I mean, that is just a stunningly direct and courageous thing to do. And she ends with this. There's no polite thank you for your time. Just this raw, honest, and frankly devastating statement of how she feels. It's a refusal to perform gratitude when she's in pain, and that line just hangs in the air. It perfectly captures all the frustration we've been hearing.
And just like that, it's over. The public comment period ends, and the whiplash is just immediate. After all these profound human stories of fear and frustration, the government machine just clicks right back into gear. The agenda moves on to settling lawsuits for thousands of dollars, accepting financial reports, appointing people to boards. The contrast, it's just jarring.
So, what do we do with all that? What's the big takeaway? I think it really comes down to the incredible power and maybe the limitations of those 3 minutes at the podium.
3 minutes. It's really not a lot of time, is it? But it's enough. It's enough time to challenge a mayor, enough time to paint a vivid picture of a crisis, enough time to demand that your humanity be recognized. It forces you to boil down all your anger, all your hope, all your fear into its most potent, powerful form.
And this is the core question, isn't it? We saw the raw emotion loud and clear, and then we saw the machine just pivot right back to business as usual. So what happens next? Do those powerful stories actually change anything? Do they echo in the minds of the council members when they're voting on budgets and settlements? Or do they just fade away?
The People's Podium, it guarantees everyone gets a voice. It's a chance to speak truth directly to power. But as the agenda moves on, it leaves us with this one really important question. In a system that's built on procedure and budgets and rules, what does it actually take for a voice, not just to be spoken, but to be truly, deeply heard?